Welcome, everyone. Welcome to one of the most powerful sellout shows that you're going to watch all year. I am Diana Guerin. I am the co-founder of Trade Show Makeover, where we help companies stop leaving money on the trade show floor.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean Carol Sandy. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of the Selling Agency, where we coach humans how to sell to other humans. Because, well, I just can't take it, Diana. If you're making this one mistake in negotiation, you're leaving so much money on the floor.
So much money on the table.
On the table, on the floor, on the table, out of your wallet, wherever. You're stuck in this particular area.
In the sink, in the toilet. Yeah, so it's so perfect. So just before we started recording, we were talking about some negotiation training that you were doing with pushback, objection handling, and negotiation training that you're doing with your team. So what were some of the things that they discovered in your training?
This was probably one of their biggest epiphany moments. So for this particular group, I think I love to customize all the training. I mean, like if your trainer's not doing that and it's out of the box, out of the can, like dump it out, that's not doing you a lot of good, is it? So one of the things I do is I'll survey the sales team ahead of time and ask them some questions to make sure I'm using their experiences, their common obstacles in the training. So I surveyed this team and said, tell me about some of the common pushback you get. Tell me about some of the common objections you get and or negotiation points. And what was really interesting was that when I reflected this training or their responses back to them, their objection points were, well, your competitors charge a lower rate. The response was, well, we get longer terms from our current vendor. The response was, your competitors are beating your rate. So all their responses were statements about what the competition was doing. And here's what happens. In our brain, we say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they want to negotiate, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop.
Make it stop.
Yeah, we have a physiological response of fear to what they're telling us. And then people jump in and say, okay, well, let's negotiate. So what's happening is that salespeople are starting the negotiation and discount process.
No.
Yeah. And so in all these responses, I said, where in here did your customer ask for a discount? Is there a question in here? Did they say, can I get a lower price? Can I get a discount? That's not what they said. So they were like, huh. And I said, what does this mean? Well, it means that your customer, if they cannot ask you for a direct discount, they're trying to circumvent that. And they're implying that they're not happy with the pricing or the contract. You are inferring that they want to negotiate, and you're off to the races negotiating. If they can't come out directly and say, I want a discount, I want a lower price, why are we doing the work for them, Diana? Why?
I don't know. It's great. Well, you know that I love the conversation about discounting and negotiation, but one of the most powerful things that somebody once taught me was acknowledge statements and answer questions.
Oh, that's so good. All right. For the people in the back row, say it again.
I have dog hair. I have a new puppy. I have puppy hair in my mouth. Because
stop licking him.
Happens. Yeah, so acknowledge statements and answer questions. So like what you just said, your competitor is giving me better terms. And you're like, tell me about them. Like you acknowledged that they said something, you don't just sit there like a dummy, but they didn't ask you a question. And there's so many times we answer statements like, I can't make it today. Or I don't even know how, well, yeah, your competitor has better terms. Oh, well, I can offer you better terms. They didn't ask that. They didn't ask you a question.
No. So here's what it says to me. If your buyer sitting across the table from you, they're not the enemy. They're not your protagonist. I mean, they're first of all, negotiation is an alignment mechanism. That's the first place I like to shift mindset. It's not this battle of wills. Negotiation is an alignment mechanism to make cost equate to value, right? Price could be entirely left out of the equation. It's, does this cost equate to the value I'm going to receive? Can I align that? It's an alignment mechanism and it's necessary. Just expect it, right? Why are we so surprised? However, if someone doesn't come out directly and ask you for that,
yeah,
they're not crazy comfortable and excited about negotiating either. They loathe the fear too, and they want it to be over with as quickly as possible. So the chances of you holding tight and pushing back on them and them sitting in discomfort and them being more uncomfortable to directly ask is entirely possible. So if we don't just jump right in, chances are we're going to be able to come to an alignment that favors the terms and pricing that we offer.
It's absolutely right. And that even, I think the game changes a little bit when you're working with, and you've done this before, you've worked with enterprise accounts that have procurement who are designed, their job and what they're evaluated on is getting the best terms. But the other thing that people forget is if you've gotten to procurement, that means that the business unit has told procurement that they want this. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I just have my favorite negotiation stories, but I was selling to a big Fortune 500 company that you would recognize the name, and you might even drive one of their cars. So we were at the end of, we'd gone through all these processes, and they looked at the competitors, blah, 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 blah. And the procurement guy called me and said, okay, well, your competitor is willing to offer us better terms on this part of the contract. And I said, okay. And he said, so, what do you want to say about that? And I was like, well, then you would be using their product and not ours.
I love that response.
And he said, I know, that's why I'm talking to you. I want to buy your product. And I said, well, unfortunately, for this and this and this reason, I mean, you don't just stand by your terms just to be a jerk.
Right.
We're well thought through why we had to have those terms to make the contract actually work for both sides. He understood it. They paid full price. They took our terms. But, and then he called me right before he retired, and he's like, that was like the best negotiation conversation I think I've ever had. It was so badass.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk through just a couple ways to handle that. When they make a statement, again, they're trying to avoid the uncomfortable feelings of conflict in aligning their cost with value. And so they're pushing back on you, hoping you feel uncomfortable. And because we feel so uncomfortable and we want that to stop, that's why we jump into negotiation. So your response was to say, he said your competitors offer more favorable terms.
Yeah, it was a part of it. It wasn't necessarily price. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they needed to take more of a liability risk than our competitor was asking them to take.
Okay, and so your response, lay that out for me again.
Yeah, so he said, your competitor is willing to give on these terms, and that I said, and he said something like, and that makes them look a lot more compelling to us right now. I think he said something like that. I said, okay, and he said, so what can you do about that? And or what do you want to say about that? And I said, well, if you go with them, you'll be using their product and not ours.
So that response was clever and funny. And that he wants.
And we have rapport. Do you know what I mean? Some procurement people are just like, you don't want to get at them because then it looks snarky, right?
Right.
And you don't want to be snarky. We had rapport already.
Right. Well, and he didn't directly ask you to discount. He just said, what do you have to say about that? Hoping you would start down that process.
Right.
So it was funny, clever. You had rapport. That he wants you and your product. So you're not going to go immediately jump in a discount. And you pointed out, well, if you like their terms, you'd be using their product and not ours. I love that. Okay, I have one for you. Yeah. So this one, I swear a guy's eyeballs were going to fall out of his head whenever I said this one. So the response was, well, your competitors offer lower rates. And so my response back to him, because we did a lot of role play, man, people wanted to just hide under the table. But once we got into role play, I mean, it's not that bad, folks. You're not going to die. You are not going to die. So the pushback was, well, your competitors offer lower rates. And so my response was to lean in and say, so is that a no? And then what
Oh,
happens is you immediately understand how much they want you and how much skin they have in the game. Because usually what happens, they say, well, no, but, we really would like, to have a discount here. And then you can pivot to the value question. Well, where in here does it seem like it's not meeting the value of what you're looking for? And then you shut up. A big
and then
key.
you be quiet.
Shut up. Zip it.
I seriously had a sales conversation yesterday with somebody who, after I asked the big question, I think it was 45 seconds of silence.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay.
Well, what was happening was he was really thinking through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes you have to give somebody time to think through it. Now, I've gotten really comfortable with the silence because what I realize is that the next thing that comes out of their mouth is going to be how to sell them.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's really easy for me to just be quiet and let them do it. But somebody once told me, I have all these little platitudes. Somebody once told me, once you ask the big question, like, are you going to buy this, or how do we move forward? The next person who speaks leaves with the product.
Right. Right. I like that so much better than the first person that speaks loses. But that's so good. Yeah. I mean, you're there for a reason. If you've gotten to the point where you proposed, you put a price in front of them, honestly, if you've done your due diligence and a great job through the sales process, there really shouldn't be any surprises. So there are probably not any true objections. There's a negotiation and alignment process that they want to happen. So yeah, that being quiet is really letting them think through. People need time to think. We are so not good at this anymore. That's one of the number one problems that when I teach when we go through the skills builder session for negotiation, pushback, and objections, that silence component, that silence mechanism is a struggle bus for so many people. But when you say, so is that a no? If you keep talking, you completely F up what you have just done. All the time.
Well, also let people are really big. I mean, if they're in a position where they can buy your product, then they're accomplished in their careers and they're good at figuring out their own problems. And you're not good. You're not as good at figuring out their problem. And if you figure out their problem for them, they're not going to own it themselves. So
yes,
you say like, well, then how do we make this work? Let them solve the problem.
Yes,
they can. Just give them a minute.
And because that's such a good point. In this alignment mechanism, this is the other part of it. If we're desperate for a sale and to close a deal, that's our problem.
Yeah.
If they can't afford, if they can't accept our terms, that's a them problem. And so they're the ones that need to figure out how to fix it. We don't jump in and serve it up on a silver platter without being asked. No.
Another really good one that has worked so great, not like a tip or technique, but just like being a normal human being. What you said, I need these terms. My next question is this a deal breaker?
Right. Right.
And then you be quiet again. Because, so a lot of times people are just, well, I want that in brown.
Right.
Is that a deal breaker? Well, not actually, but I would like it in brown. Well, I think brown would be awesome, but we just don't have brown. So what's the next thing that we need to talk about?
Exactly. Yeah. The key, the key really to this process is to slow it down, to think it through, to expect it, think it through first, practice it, slow it down, and not give it up before you're even asked for it. And there's a ton of other stuff I don't want to go into because I'm not going to give it all away.
But so what did you were going to tell me a Chris Voss thing though that I was really interested in. Do you remember what you were going to say about Chris Voss?
I do, and that's the part I'm not going to give away.
Okay. Oh, you have to hire Sean Carroll Sandy if you want the good stuff.
No, but this first part about recognizing the fact that we as sellers, in order to sort of stave off that physiological discomfort, I mean, the sweaty armpits and the clamminess and we rush to get this over with. No one likes conflict. And if you're looking at negotiation as conflict instead of an alignment mechanism, one, let's shift our thinking. Expect it. It's going to happen. People want to align their cost with the value they're receiving. And if you can accept that should be a good first thing. But then also, if your buyer and someone across the other side of the table feels the same way, don't make it okay for them. Make it okay for both of you by understanding that you don't have to start the negotiation process just because they imply that maybe
Please don't start the negotiation process.
No, don't negotiate against yourself.
No, it's like being in an auction and holding up your paddle after you're the one who's winning. You know, I learned this lesson really well from my dog. I had a very stubborn dog. We recently lost him, but he would be at the beach, and if he had a stick, right, I would just hold my hand on the stick lightly and gently, and then he would start to let it go. And when he would start to let it go, because he was so stubborn, I would like go to grab it and chomp down, right? So what I learned was I gotta let him give it to me all the way before I take it. So I think salespeople do that a lot. That somebody starts to give a little bit and you like try to pull it over to you and chomp down and you're done. Just let them give it to you all the way.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so good. So speaking of dogs, any negotiation tales you're learning with the new puppy?
Really, 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 truly, 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 truly don't let them in the house unsupervised until they're fully potty trained.
Oh,
he's doing great. But you know, anyway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you can tell the whole story. So, okay. So I know we're gonna go, but I have a really fun story to tell you before we do.
Yes, please.
I don't know if you saw it on Facebook when I posted, but have you seen that CoverGirl mascara commercial with the female motorcycle rider? I don't even know her name. She's super hot, and she's a motorcycle racer, right? And so they show her at the beginning, and they're kind of doing this voiceover as she's, you know, putting on her mascara and getting her helmet on, and she's gorgeous. But then also like getting out and riding and she's ahead of the pack, right? So the voiceover goes, people ask me what it's like to be a woman competing in a man's world. Isn't it hard to compete in a man's world? And then the next line is, as she's pulling ahead of everyone, maybe for the men.
I love that. That is all about your perspective, isn't it?
Maybe for the men.
Maybe for the men. Oh, that's so good.
I mean, you know, I love men, and I'm not a big, like, you know, women have to like prevail, but yeah. It is a stupid question. And when women get that, when I get that in sales, I came up through the finance world, I came up through the car world.
Right.
When I used to get that, and I was always the #1 producer at both of those places where I worked, and most of the rest of the people were men. But I just thought that was a stupid question. I mean, sales is a performance sport. Business is a performance sport.
It is.
I get it. I do believe that there are barriers that women actually experience and have to deal with. I really do believe that. But yeah, come on, stop asking stupid questions.
Yeah, that is really funny. Maybe for the men. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. So the key takeaway here is
stop hoping
and start selling.
That's right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.